What's up, everybody? This is Jamie.
And Sharon from Sharonatsea.
And we're here today to have an extremely important conversation with you. We understand you're ready to book your first cruise, but you're not really sure how to go about doing it.
Well, we are going to tell you how in Cruising 101, everything a first-time cruiser needs to know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. All right, so what we want to do today is we want to cover everything from A to Z on how to go about getting yourself hooked up with a cruise. You've made the decision. You want to spend a week in a floating hotel with all the food and beverages and everything that you can get your hands on. You want to stop in exotic ports day after day, and now you're thinking, how do I go about making that happen? So we're going to cover everything for you guys today.
Yeah, it could be a little overwhelming, but it's, if you go step by step, it's could be pretty simple. You just got to take one step at a time and do a lot of research, and you'll get through it. Believe me.
There you go.
You'll be hooked.
So we're gonna cover. we're gonna go through about 12 or 15 things that are gonna be really important to you. And listen, you can take notes. You can watch the video multiple times. Whatever works for you. We're just gonna tell you how to go about getting the job done. So first thing we're gonna cover is choosing the right cruise line for you.
Yes, that can be really important whether you would decide to ever cruise again. If you pick the wrong cruise line or the wrong cruise ship, cruising may not appeal to you.
Yeah, you can get turned off.
Yeah, because it depends on what type of person you are. If you are cruising with a family, with kids, you're going to want a ship with more kid-friendly things. If you're going on a honeymoon or you want more romance. If you're an elderly couple, the cruise line can make a big deal.
Yeah, or if you're an elderly couple and you're looking for romance on your honeymoon.
Well, that's true.
whatever floats your boat.
Yeah, there you go.
I guess that might be an appropriate comment to make. But yeah, I mean, there's so many different options out there for cruise ships. There's different levels of service and luxury and everything you can get involved in. Right.
And a big thing is budget. Budget is probably the number one factor that people would think about first, because a lot of people, like most people, they're on a budget. Let's face it. You want to go on vacation, but you're on a budget, so they're going to sometimes pick the one that's more budget friendly, and then all those other things that I just mentioned will kind of fall in after that into place to pick the right cruise line.
And speaking of budget, cruising is one of the most budget friendly things you can do because of the way it's structured and the way that you can pay for it over time and things like that. And we'll talk about that stuff a little later. But first thing you got to do, choose a cruise line that's right for you. Do some research, see which cruise lines you want to go with. Carnival, Royal Caribbean, Princess, Norwegian Cruise Lines, Holland America. Those are just some of the more popular, and there's probably dozens of other ones that we're not even mentioning that are out there for you to choose from.
There are, but yeah, those are kind of some of the main ones that most people kind of tend to draw to first.
Yeah, so figure out which one you want to go on. Then the next thing is where and when do you want to go when you're going on this cruise?
Right. If you are just wanting to take a cruise, you want to kind of have some fun in the sun, Caribbean cruise. That's usually what most people do for their first cruise. But you pick a good time of year. Don't pick, even though it is a little less expensive during this time, I wouldn't suggest you take a Caribbean cruise during hurricane season because,
Well, when is hurricane season?
Hurricane season is from June 1st to, they say October 1st in the Caribbean, but I would say usually August to early September, maybe late July, early August to mid-September to late September are going to be your worst times for weather.
I mean, everyone's seen on the news, you're watching hurricanes, like stuff in Galveston, Texas, stuff in Miami and out of Florida, and these are some of the hottest, places that people leave out of to go on cruises. And you see what the weather can do. It's not like the weather is going to be dangerous to you on the ship, because ships go around the weather, they go out of the way of the storm, so that's not really the issue. The issue is, how does it affect what's going on land?
Right.
Ports get closed, there's damage at the ports, there's flooding and different things like that.
In fact, your excursions,
that's the stuff that can mess you up.
Yeah,
so those are some of the things, getting in and out of port and all that. So the time of year is going to be crucial. Maybe you can only go when if you have kids, when the kids are out of school. Obviously spring break, Summertime, it might be more expensive to go, but that's the price you pay. Or other times of the year, you can go during Christmas, New Year's, Thanksgiving, holidays. People spend the holidays on ships. So when you want to go is going to be, important, and that might play a part in your budgeting and how much it costs. So figure that out, and then where to go.
Yeah, where, like I said, if you want the Caribbean, if you want something colder weather, you want to go to Alaska maybe, that's a nice place to visit as well. Now those only sail during the summer months, and with the weather with Alaska it's kind of hit and miss. During the whole season you can hit rain all week, or you could have some nice warm weather. So, well, slightly warm, let's say.
We had real warm weather. We went to Alaska once, and the weather was ridiculously warm, and we were waiting to freeze our butts off, and it didn't even happen.
And you really don't know. We went in May when it's normally rainy and cold, and it was warm that week, and the next week it was rainy and cold. So
we
yeah,
shorts
you just
and
never
t-shirts
know.
all the time, so it was crazy.
So
I mean, if you can leave from the Northwest if you're going to Alaska. You can leave from California if you want to go down to Mexico and the Mexican Riviera.
Right.
You leave from Galveston or New Orleans if you're looking for, what would that be, like a Western Caribbean deal. You can go out of a number of places on the East Coast, starting up north in New York, down to Baltimore,
go to the Caribbean,
Virginia,
to Bermuda,
stuff like that. There's numerous ports in Florida as well. So you got to figure out where you want to go to. Also, where do you want to leave from? And then we'll talk a little bit later about how to get to those ports and some of that kind of planning.
Yeah.
So you figure out, when and where is your next thing.
And usually most people want to pick a closer port, and if you can drive, that's always great too versus flying.
Oh yeah,
but we'll
save
talk
you a
about
couple
that
bucks.
in a little while.
Yep. All right. So that's one. That's the second really important thing that we want to talk about. One other side note is identification. I'm sorry. I don't want to jump ahead a little bit. What's the next part of it?
Next you should decide how you want to book. Okay, we did a video not too long ago on ways to book, whether it's booking directly through the cruise line. If you just get online and book yourself, you can also book through like outside sort of agencies like Expedia and those type of agencies online yourself, or a travel agent. So we did a video, which I'm going to link that below, which will help you decide on that aspect. I'm not going to go into all of those. I will say if you book through somewhere like Expedia, somewhere that's not with the cruise line or with the travel agent, you don't always get someone to talk to if there's a problem. Sometimes it can, for a first-time cruiser, I would not suggest doing that, because if there's a problem, it can turn into a big problem.
And with Expedia, don't you have to pay up front the whole thing?
You do pay up front, and sometimes they actually charge you a little extra fee as well to book through them, which you're not always aware till you get to the end of it.
Sure.
But anyways, watch our other video on that and decide how you want to book.
Yeah, there's benefits to each one. You can do it yourself. You can have someone do it for you. But if you're new, I mean, listen, Sharon can tell you, she gets a lot of folks that are new that she deals with, and it can be a great help to have someone who has some knowledge. You can ask them all the questions you want, anytime you want, get all the answers that you need about situations and scenarios and things like that. And as far as cost goes, you're not going to pay any more to go with a travel agent than you would if you book directly. And talking to a travel agent can maybe help you find some different times and different ways to save money in your booking too.
They can actually help you with some of those questions we were just talking about when, where, what time, what ship, what cruise line, and things like that as well.
All right, so the next thing is just real quick, I started to mention a minute ago, identification. There's lots of talk about what you need to get on the ship. We'll recommend get a passport. I
always recommend get a passport. If you don't have to have a passport to cruise to most places, there are a few that you would need one to. If you're going to be going to Europe or to Canada, Cuba, some of those places, you're going to need one. But your typical Caribbean cruise, you can go with just a birth certificate and a valid picture ID, like a driver's license or a identification card. And that's now, according, at the time of this video, things are subject to change. There are changing some laws right now with driver's license, where you have to have specific driver's licenses that have that allow you to travel, I guess now. And then coming up, and probably within the next couple of years, all the states will be implemented into that. So you will not be able to just take your regular old driver's license and travel. You'll have to have the special one that you've already I guess, sort of applied for at the DMV.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. But like I said, right now you can travel with that, although I would highly recommend a passport, because if you do get ever stuck in port for any reason and the ship leaves without you and you need to fly home, whether it's a medical emergency, the ship leaves, whatever, you do need that passport to fly home when you're in a foreign country.
Yes, it can never hurt. So passport, the way to go. That's what we recommend. All right, so we touched on it earlier. The next big topic is going to be money. People always talk about, well, cruising, isn't it super expensive? Don't you have to have a ton of money? If you cruise, you must be rich. I mean, those are all just fallacies. There's you know, you can cruise on a budget. It can be fairly inexpensive. And I've said it 100 times, the best thing I like about it is that you can put a small amount of money down to get your cruise going and get booked and secured for a cruise that's 6-8 months a year from now. Pay on it a little bit at a time, and by the time you get on that ship, you basically paid for 75 or 80% of all your expenses.
Kind of like a layaway plan.
Yeah, totally.
Layaway
Yeah. Exactly. So that's definitely something you can do. You're going to look at, first thing you can do is you're going to put down a deposit to book. Now, again, you can book a cruise that's happening in 30 days and pay the whole thing. You can book a cruise that's a year and a half away and put down, you know, an amount of a deposit. Cruise ships are always having $50, $100 deposits.
Yeah, reduced
standard,
deposits.
I think. How much is like a standard amount?
It depends. The amount depends on the cruise line and the length of the cruise, whether it's like a 3 or 4 day, 5, 6, 7 day, that changes. But for your most cruise lines, this is most cruise lines, not all, for a 7-day cruise, typically the normal deposit is $250 per person, $250 per person. But like I said, there's reduced deposits sometimes, and if you're taking a shorter cruise, like a 3-day, you know, the deposit's $100 per person. And that's most cruise lines. They all vary, so keep that in mind.
And then you can always look for deals. And of course, you're putting your money down. You're going to choose a cabin depending on different parts of the ship, interiors, window, ocean views, balconies, suites. You know, so you have a lot of options there where you can take a look at the deck plan of a ship and choose where you think you want to be. You know, if you're susceptible to seasickness, you might want to be lower and towards the middle. If it's not an issue, it's fun to be up high and have a balcony and see everything going on. You know, so that's pretty cool stuff that you can get to choose as well. We talked about you make your deposit, then you can just pay on the cruise. Listen, you can just do $100 a paycheck. You could put a lump amount down. You really just have to be paid in full.
But usually it depends on the length. Once again, it depends on the length of the cruise, you know, and the cruise line. But usually it's 60 to 70 days out. That's just average for most cruise lines and an average cruise. Some are a little closer to the cruise and some are a little further out from the cruise, but to be paid in full.
Now, wait, you're budgeting your money. So one factor is going to be, do you have to fly, you know, to the port? Do you have to spend money on that? So that's always going to be something to consider as well. And you know, so those are all factors to take in. If you have
a pre-hotel cruise stay, like you fly in the night before or even drive in the night before, closer to the cruise port, you know, you want to factor in, the expense of a hotel. You're going to need to make a hotel reservation for that night, you know, and pay for that.
And then other things is, you know, we mentioned that most, you know, when you get on that ship, you've pretty much paid for your whole cruise. Your room and board, handled. Majority of your food is going to be handled. The only thing you're going to need money for is excursions, alcohol, if you like to have a couple of cocktails. What other stuff that you have to pay for?
And the gratuities, possibly. Now, you can pre-book all of your shore excursions and pay ahead before you even cruise, and you can prepay all your gratuities.
Yes.
Technically, you can buy the drink package and some of those things too, and internet package, all that stuff, and prepay for it if you want any of those things, and get on the ship and really not have to put out another dime unless you want to go gamble in the casino. But that's just if you want to get all those things, basically. If you don't, then you will get charged for your drinks, you know, as you drink alcoholic beverages, or even maybe a coffee from the coffee bar or something on the ship. Those things will get added onto your ship card account, along with like photos you might buy and few other things around the ship. But you can get on the ship and not spend anything if you don't want to.
Yeah, so money's always a big deal, but again, you book, you pay on it, you're paid before you go, and then the extra money you need is really mostly spending money for things that you choose to do, where you can spend more or less depending on your budget, and then tipping, and usually, I don't know, you could figure it's going to be 60, 70, 80 bucks a person for the week, and they'll usually add that onto your account at some point during the week. But like Sharon said, any of those things you can prepay and be paid for before you get on the ship than later.
Yeah, and I would suggest maybe making a little list of your ports and some of those expenses there, and just kind of making a little list.
You know what? You should make a video where you show how you budget out your day-by-day spending, and maybe put it in envelopes or something.
I do. I will put my budget envelope video below as well. But you can actually kind of just write it out before you do the envelopes. Just kind of write it out, just to kind of, so you can kind of have a checklist and kind of check things off as you're planning, doing some of your planning and things like that.
And I always tell people when they talk about how much does it cost to cruise, we can cruise cheaper than to go to like Disneyland, for a week or something like that. I mean, if you take into consideration buying all your meals, hotels at $200 a night, and all that kind of other stuff, cruising is no more expensive than any other family type vacation deal. So once you're booked, once you're starting to pay for it, you've got all those things set up, you're getting excited, then the next thing is you need to start your planning on getting to the ship. We mentioned if you're lucky, you can drive to a port. We're very jealous of the people in Florida because they have multiple ports that they can just drive to. We're getting excited because our next cruise happens to be on the West Coast out of Los Angeles, so we're going to drive there, saving a lot of money on flights and things like that. But you want to plan on we always recommend get into town the day before the cruise, so that you don't have to worry about flights or issues or delays or anything like that, because the last thing you want to do is book a cruise, wait a year to get on the ship, and miss it, or have a massive delay and be freaking out over it. So if we're going out of we're in Arizona, if we're going out of Florida, we'll fly in the day before, get a hotel, make arrangements, things like that.
And then you're close by, you're ready to go. You need to make your arrangements for how you're going to get to the port from the hotel. Sometimes if you're flying in and you are going straight to the port, you can book the transfer through the cruise line. You can also book it through the cruise line and then take a shuttle back to the airport and catch it to get down there as well, if you want to book it that way. Or you can just find your own transportation, whether it's some kind of a transportation company, just a taxi down to the port. Some people rent cars for the day, drive them down and drop them off on ports that have an area to drop them off available. But there's lots of options out there. So that's where another factor where you do a little research, and it all depends on, like I said, the port you're going to be sailing out of, and where you're at, because all those things can differ depending on where you're at.
Totally. So, and every place, it can be so different. Like if you go into Texas, and you're going out of Galveston, that's pretty far. I mean, that's a good chunk of time away. So you need to make arrangements, and that might be a little more costly. Versus if you go to Miami, it's only a 15-minute drive to the port area where you might get to your hotel, and heck, you can even go places where you might be able to walk from your hotel to the port. I think New Orleans might have some spots like that.
There's a couple really close.
So there's a couple different options there. And then we talked about, we always go in a day ahead of time. And then as far as when we leave, there's been times where you get off the ship and we go right to the airport, or there's times where we book a hotel and spend the night after the cruise. And that depends on flights, airfare costs, different things like that. And I think, that's we talk about that in other videos and things like that, but there's a lot of options there that you can, take advantage of. So
you just got to kind of weigh in the cost
plan
of your
that out and
flight
you're good to go.
Versus leaving the day right after you get off the ship, or sometimes you can find a flight the next day where it's enough cheaper where it pays for you just to stay in an expensive hotel that night. So
if you can save $400 on flights and spend $150 on a hotel, then it's definitely worth it. You're saving a little money that way, so that's always cool. All right, so you've booked, you're making your arrangements, you're talking about how to get to the port and stuff. Now you just got to start doing, what are the 3 R's?
Research, like I always say.
You got to start doing a little research on that bad boy. Get on the internet, go to all the websites, watch every one of the 1,000 Sharonatsea videos, or whatever the case is, so you can start to see what to expect and learn all about that kind of stuff.
Right. You gotta look for
there are Go ahead.
It'll be time to start researching what you're going to want to be doing in the ports, excursion wise. Whether you can book excursions just through the cruise line, you can book all of them outside of the cruise line. You can do maybe one with the cruise line and find another one in another port outside of the cruise line too. Whatever you want. But it's just, you just need to do your research, and you'll on cost. What else? Safety. You just have to look for something that is a reputable company if you're looking outside the cruise line that gets 5 stars, 4 stars reviews.
Well, so excursions, some people might be like, well, what do you mean excursion? So when you go on the cruise, 3 or 4 of the days, you're going to be in port. The ship's going to sail into port. It's going to dock. They're going to tie off. You're going to get off the ship and go do stuff. And you do have options. You can book your excursion through the ship. Might cost a few dollars more, but one benefit, especially if you're a new cruiser, is that the cruise is in charge of the tour. You get off the ship, you get back on, no problems. If the excursion has a problem, if it's delayed, flat tires, somebody sprains an ankle, any of that kind of stuff, and it causes you to be late getting back to the port, the cruise ship waits for its own excursions, so you won't be left behind if you book through the ship.
That's right. Normally, we take a lot of excursions outside of the cruise line, and if you're a frequent cruiser or have cruised a few times, I recommend that because it is less expensive for the most part. But I do recommend first-time cruisers stick with maybe cruise line excursions. I think they have a little more peace of mind with that. And you'll just have a better experience. You're guaranteed you're going to get back.
Yeah.
And
once you get on your 3rd or 4th cruise, then you start doing your own thing. Planning ahead, researching companies, making sure that you're not too far off the beaten path, and you can get back to the ship.
Right.
But otherwise, excursions you can book them right through the ship. Now you can do those ahead of time. You can go online with most cruise lines and find the excursion you like, pay for it ahead of time. You're basically booked. You get on, and then when you're on the ship, you'll get your tickets for the excursion that you booked. But you can also get on the ship, and they will be promoting and talking about excursions as well. So you could just worry about that when you get on the ship.
You can
find what you want to do, decide what ones, talk to other people, stuff like that. And one good place to get also some information is on Facebook. If you search for Facebook groups for your date and for your ship, you can find Facebook groups where people are forming a group. They're talking about the cruise, what they're going to be doing. They're kind of making friends ahead of time, planning meet and greets and stuff like that. So if you're social, that's something you can look into doing as well to get information.
And you can get a lot of questions answered there because there'll be people that have cruised before, maybe even cruised on that ship or done that itinerary before, and they can answer a lot of questions, for you as well.
Exactly. So research, and then start planning your excursions and things like that, and and what you want to book. Sharon made a comment earlier about the drink package and things. So along with doing your excursions ahead of time, you can also choose some things where you can do some pre-purchasing for things for the room. You want decorations, you can book that and you can pay for that. If you want, you can pre-purchase a bottle of alcohol with most cruise lines to be in the room when you get there. It costs like 5 times the cost of a bottle at the store.
It does, but it does save you.
But it's nice to have a little booze in your room if you're into that kind of thing.
Yeah, but it does save you overall because you will get the bottle, but you may pay, I don't know, it varies.
You'll pay like $80-$90 for a bottle that'll cost you $20 in the store.
Yes, that's true. But you'll get probably, I don't know, how many drinks do you usually get out of that thing?
Well,
you'll get...
well, you may not get too many because you start pouring doubles and triples since you're not paying for each drink.
Well, basically a drink is about, I'd say around $8.50, anywhere from $8.50 to $10 for each drink on the cruise ship. Maybe not beer, but for mixed drinks.
Yeah, I might go down to like $6.50 to $10.
Yeah,
just depending.
So basically, you're definitely going to probably get twice as many drinks out of that bottle.
Yeah, for the same amount of money. As far as, because when you're on the ship, each drink will have a shot of alcohol in it. They're not heavy pours or they're not limp-wristed pours on the ship. It's very measured, and they keep an eye on that kind of stuff. So So you can pre-purchase a bottle. I don't want to get too much into the bottle pre-purchase, but you can do that. You can pre-purchase drink packages and things of that nature. Another thing you can pre-purchase, and we'll talk a little bit more about it, are you can make reservations ahead of time for dining on certain ships and specialty dining.
Specialty dining. Now
things like
on
that.
some cruise lines, they always recommend that you make reservations ahead of time. Although some cruise lines, if you don't make your reservations ahead of time, you may not get to eat there. So if you really, really want to eat there, it's highly recommended to make reservations.
Yep.
Then others, you can actually still get on board sometimes and make the reservations. I know Carnival, there's usually still openings when you get on board. You may be limited on the times, but you'll definitely at least get to eat in
Sure, and that's where all that research comes into play. Once you've chosen your ship, your destination, you know when you're going, then you start looking at people's past experiences and reading reviews and things like that, and then you can get an idea of what to expect and what some of your options are on that particular ship.
Now, another thing with the specialty restaurants, when you book them, you don't pay right then. You just make the reservation. It actually gets charged to your ship card account once you eat there that evening.
There you go. So that's the deal. So booking some things ahead of time, planning your excursions ahead of time, or doing them on the ship if you want to wait and see how you feel when you get there. That's always an option for you.
Yeah.
Keep in mind that if you prepay for excursions, if you book a ship excursion, you might get your money back if you decide you don't want to do it. Maybe you get on the ship, you're not feeling well, you're ill, something like that.
They'll usually refund your money.
They can refund it sometimes. If you prepay for an excursion that's not a ship excursion, then there may be some different rules and things you need to adhere to as far as refunds and money back
so that's
and
one
stuff
thing
like that.
to ask when you do an outside excursion is ask those questions when you're booking it, and read all the fine print involved.
Oh yeah, don't forget the fine print.
Yeah, always a fine print gets you.
All right, cool. So the next crucial topic is going to be online check-in, getting yourself arranged to set up, how you get on the ship and things like that. And I'm going to let Sharon handle this. She's the pro in the Sharonatsea world. She handles this with her clients all the time and takes people through the steps and all that. So online check-in, what's the deal?
Right.
How does that work?
Online check-in. Well, you will log into your online check-in on the computer, on your account. Everyone should know if you can make a login usually with the cruise line and log in. You can see all your documents, everything. And if you don't know how to do that, then you can ask your travel agent or call the cruise line and ask for assistance.
Okay, so wait. So no matter how you book, direct with the cruise line or with the travel agent or whatever, you will once you're booked, you can log into the cruise line's website and see all your information.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yes, I know some people get misinformed about travel agents. The only thing that you can't do with a travel agent actually is make a payment. You have to make your payment through them. If you want to cancel or make changes as far as like change people's rooms around or things like that, you would need to call the travel agent for that. But other things, booking your excursions, everything else online that you do, you can do yourself online.
Yeah. So the travel agent can help you, walk you through it, answer your questions, and be there for you. But there are things that you can, you just handle on your own. Okay, so you've logged in, you create an account.
Create an account. There's an online check-in process, and that's where usually they don't like you to do it usually further out than 90 days these days. I don't know. It's just because maybe people tend to change things, and then it just causes more trouble them having to change it. So about 90 days out from your cruise, or even closer, you can do the online check-in. You will get on, you'll put in it should all have your name and address and all that already usually in there, but you will add any additional information. They'll want a point of contact, for an emergency contact, which you always want to put someone in there that is not sailing with you. Don't put someone in there that is sailing with you, because they're not going to be any good.
Yeah, that won't help at all.
So put someone in there that's not sailing with you. It'll also ask you how you're getting to the port, whether you're flying or driving, and it'll ask for your flight information and your pre-hotel stay if you're staying in a hotel. That's usually optional. You don't have to put all that information in, but it's a good idea because that way the cruise line knows where you're at, what's going on, if they need to get in touch with you. Also, another thing is, excuse me, you want to set up your onboard account, and that's where you can either say you're going to do a cash account Or you can link a credit card, put a credit card on file there, and that way it'll be set up for when you get on board. And if you're going to do a cash account, you don't have to put cash on it right then. You can do that once you get on board. So with that, that's a little bit of the online check-in. If you have kids, you can sign them up ahead of time for the kids clubs and all those types of things too as an online check-in. Then you'll put in another thing, important thing, you will put in your documentation whether it'll ask whether you're sailing with a passport card, or a driver's license, birth certificate, what type of ID. You're going to mark that, and if it's a passport, or you are going to put in your passport number and all that information, when you received it, when it expires, all that information you will put in. And once you're all done, your little online check-in will have a little check mark and it will say complete. And once it's completed, you can print out your documents at any time. You're going to want to make sure you don't have to print out all of your cruise itinerary documents if you don't want to. Sometimes it's good to have just so you have all that. But the main thing you want to print out is your boarding pass, the one that says boarding pass. You want to print that out. You want to also print out your luggage tags. Some cruise lines are still having you print out a health form questionnaire to fill out to bring on board with you as well. And some cruise lines are actually doing that online now. So usually is what happens if one spits out, and prints out with all of your documents, then that means you need to fill it out and take it with you. If you're not seeing one in your documents nowadays, then that means it's going to be done online. And
the health questionnaire is just something they just want to make sure that people are saying, yes, I'm not ill, I'm not going to be spreading germs all over the ship, and some basic stuff like that.
It's just ask your name, the port you're sailing from, cruise date, ship you're on. I think that's it. And then it'll have 3 questions. I think it's like things just like, have you been sick in the last 2 weeks? Have you been around anyone that's been sick? Just some general medical questions. I think there's one that asks if you're pregnant or not too. So it's just a couple of general questions.
And on a side note, if you are pregnant, check with the rules of the ship.
That's right.
Because you may not be able to cruise at certain times of your pregnancy.
Most cruise lines, it's after 24 weeks. 24 weeks is the cutoff date for sailing when you're pregnant.
Yes, because they don't want you to go into, go into labor in the middle of the main dining room.
They are not prepared for that. I mean, I'm sure they could deliver a baby, or there's someone on board that could if need be, but they don't want that responsibility. So.
Yes, and I think a child has to be how old? To get on a ship?
That varies with cruise lines. Most of the major cruise lines, it's 6 months. They have to be 6 months.
So newborns have to be, they have to be a certain age.
But
so
check
keep that
with
in
the
mind.
cruise line for the exact date, because they can change, dates can change, and like I said, it varies between cruise lines. But most cruise lines, the average date is 6 months, or probably pretty close to that.
All right, cool. All right, and so with your online, and another thing you can do with your online check-in, if I'm not mistaken, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, is you can set up a time to check in. I know the cruise line Carnival does that. They started doing that for convenience. So you can, you check in. Sharon mentioned wait until about 90 days prior, but keep an eye on that. When the online check-in becomes available for your cruise, do it, because maybe you want to get on the ship earlier. It's a little secret that we'll share with you guys. We like to get on the ship as soon as possible. Now, we've cruised a lot, so we're able to be some of the first, 50 people on the ship, because of how often we've cruised, and that's always fun. But even in our newer stages, we love getting on the ship early and maximizing our time, getting in early, checking out the ship, eating, all that kind of stuff is fun when you can do it before anyone else. So your online check-in, you might pick a time frame where you can board, and if you get there early, they'll say, oh, okay, your time is like in an hour. You have to wait out here, versus being able to get right in and get on the ship. So pay attention to that stuff. And
some cruise lines are different, like that. They do that with Carnival. Some of the other cruise lines, they set your times based on how much you've cruised with them and different things. That so each cruise line's a little different with that. But yeah, you just have to kind of do some research, ask, and check out.
And the other thing, and just to be clear on it, so we've mentioned a couple times about having your ship card, your onboard account, and things like that. So one thing to remember is that when you're on the ship, you don't buy stuff with regular money. You don't pay cash for things. You don't take out your credit card at the ship store to buy anything, whether it's watches or jewelry, or whether it's, candy and snacks at the ship store. The only time you use cash when you're on the ship is if you're gambling in the casino. And when you're in there, you can bring your own cash, or you can charge your shipboard account. So when Sharon talks about checking in online, you can do some of it prior. You can do the rest of it when you get to the port and you check in there. But you'll set up an onboard account. Like she said, it can be a cash account where you're just going to pay cash as you go. So you might get on the ship and put $200 on an account, and then once you use that, then you can't buy anything else until you put some more money on.
And another thing, that's if the cruise line offers gift cards. I know Carnival and Royal Caribbean have gift cards. I think Norwegian has some you can purchase through them as well. You can actually put your gift cards on your account at that time too. Those guest services, you just go and you put their gift cards on instead of cash, and then those will show up on your account as money you can spend as well.
Exactly. And then so you can link your credit card. So everything you do, you'll use your ship card, or some places I think have ID bracelets for it now or something. But you're basically just going to be charged for all your expenses that aren't already paid for, before you get on the ship. You'll be charged as you go, and then once you get to the final day of the cruise and you're getting off, then they'll bill you out for everything. So you can just put a credit card on file, and on the last day they'll say, okay, here's all the extra money you spent. Boom, they bill it and you're done. So you don't need to bring cash besides some tipping, cash you spend in the ports, and right. And tipping, I mean, not what they charge you, for the week, but just, a couple bucks here and there, or, stuff like that. And so they set up the card.
And if you have extra money on your account when it ends, and it's, cash that you've put on your account, they will refund it to you. And it's different on every cruise line, so you have to research. Sometimes it depends on the amount you have left, how they refund it. And things like that. So sometimes they will send you a check in the mail just a few days after you return. Sometimes you'll get a check that next morning in your little box, with a check from the cruise line.
Oh, okay.
Although they're kind of getting away
back
from that. I don't really think
they like to hold on to that.
Do that. Most all the cruise lines now just mail you a check back in the mail.
Yes.
So.
Because you're really not going to be spending any money. Once you go to sleep on that last night. When you wake up in the morning, you're usually waking up back in port, so things aren't open. You're not spending any money on anything, at that time.
A little tip is, say if you have maybe 100 or more on your account still, and you're not going to be spending it, but you don't want to wait for a check in the mail. A little tip is you can go to the casino, pull out, some money to use on your card, or on your ship card. And then you don't even really have to necessarily spend it in the casino, maybe play a game or so, but then go to the cash cage, is that what you call it? Mm-hmm. And just sort of cash out. So they will just cash you out, and then you will get that cash.
That is a secret.
And then,
are you sure that's a tip you want to throw out on the Cruising 101 video? It's more like a Cruising 103. I'm thinking.
Anyways, they'll cash you out, and then it'll just show your ship card has a zero balance pretty much, and then that cash is in your hand.
There you go. So that's all the stuff about online check-in, preparing your onboard account, and all that kind of stuff. All right, now so that's all done. Your online is done. You're locked and loaded for this cruise. Now you got to worry about, what am I going to bring? What am I going to pack?
Packing, that's a hard one, especially for the women, I think, on their first cruise, because they're wanting to either go shopping, buy new things, they're watching videos, reading articles, things, what to bring on a cruise. And I think people get a lot of people tend to overpack. I still overpack, but first time cruisers are known for overpacking. And I remember our first cruise, I don't even think I wore half of the things I brought.
Our first cruise, we look ridiculous. We have pictures when we're getting on the ship, and I'm wearing jean shorts and a denim shirt, and I got work boots on. I mean, it's ridiculous. We were clueless to really? What we really need, and now, I mean, it's obviously Sharon's got a whole luggage full of all the girl stuff. She needs 2 different pairs of shoes per day and all that kind of stuff. And the guy's pretty simple. I need flip-flops, some shorts, a couple collared shirts, something nice to wear to dinner at one point. But
just do your research. You're gonna want most. If I'm gonna base this off like a 7-night cruise, the shorter ones have less formal nights, but a 7-day cruise usually has 2 formal nights. So you're going to want to bring 2 nicer outfits. You can wear the same one both nights if you want. Some people take them off right after dinner and change into something comfortable for the rest of the night. So they really don't get dirty, but it's up to you. Mm-hmm. but you need out those, and then or you can opt to not even go to the dining room those nights too, and not dress up at all.
And there you were kind of circling back to choosing what ship to go on. I mean, if you're booking Holland America, you're probably wearing a shirt and tie to dinner.
Yeah.
That's the kind of person you are every time.
Some cruise lines are a little more casual than others. Some of the more uppity, I guess, ones, you're going to
uppity.
You're going to want to dress up a little bit more. So anyways, but you need that. Then if you're going on, like I said, a Caribbean cruise, you're going to want to bring some, your swimwear and just casual things.
Yeah, so and one thing we'll tell you about is we'll link below to our packing videos so you can take a look at stuff about packing and what to pack, how to do it, and all that kind of stuff. And to get all the information that you need when it comes to packing, you can check out, we've done a couple of videos. Well, okay, Sharon has. I'm not a big packer. I'm not really allowed anywhere near the luggage, to be honest with you. So you can check out Sharon's videos on packing.
We have packing for a Caribbean cruise, whether you're driving or flying to the port, Mexican Riviera cruise, and also we have our video, our Alaska cruise video. We went to Alaska, and we have one for packing for cold weather. So
and I'll tell you, and packing, I mean, people think, okay, whatever, packing, but you're putting all the stuff in your luggage. If you're flying somewhere, it's got to be 50 pounds. Remember, when you come home, you'll probably have more than you left with.
Right.
You'll have souvenirs and things like that. So keep those things in mind. We've gotten in the habit of packing an extra bag so that we can put things in that have a little value to it, that are sensitive.
Fold-up bag, so we'll stick that just in our luggage. And then when we get, when we're getting off the ship, if we're going to be over 50 pounds, we can throw a few things in that, and just take on the plane with us as a carry-on or something. And like I said, if we're driving to the port, then you don't have to worry about the 50 pounds at all. So that's really nice sometimes.
Yeah, and you can check out, we invested in a luggage scale, which comes in handy.
Oh, that is...
Because there's nothing, guys, I don't know, you may know this, there's nothing worse than getting to there, finding out your luggage is 53 pounds instead of 50, and in the middle of all the chaos of the airport, you're on your hands and knees, and your wife's pulling your underpants out and trying to put those in another bag, or she's saying, here, put this in your backpack and put this in the purse, and it's horrendous. So some of you have probably been down that road before. So
I know we have.
And then one thing we found out, which is interesting, is on the way home, there's so much moisture that builds up in your stuff. Your clothes can be a little more wet and damp and a little heavier from being out at sea. So your stuff will weigh more on the way back. So bring an extra bag. It can only help you when you're trying to get through the airport and stuff.
It does that. And also the luggage that is the cloth luggage versus the hard shell luggage. That soft luggage will kind of absorb a little
some moisture
as well. And so that tends to weigh a little more, I think, anyways. But that will tend to weigh more coming back.
Yes.
So
we
there's
noticed intricacies to packing, for your trip.
Yeah, one time we put the exact same stuff in one luggage coming back, and our luggage was about 5 pounds more.
Yes. So there you have it. So packing. Watch our videos, and you can see what we do as far as getting there. And real quick, when you get there, you can have access to an ironing board, an iron. There are laundry rooms on the ship. So in a pinch, you can do a load of laundry.
On most cruise lines. There are a few cruise lines.
Most cruise lines, you can go down and wash a couple of shorts, your pants. And we know some people that do a whole load of laundry halfway through and bring a lot less. And some people refuse to do laundry on their vacation. That's up to you, and that's your prerogative.
And some of the cruise lines that don't have the laundry rooms, they do have where the staff will take your laundry and do it, the laundry services. And then there's some cruise lines that don't have any. So just check with your cruise line about that.
There you go. All right, so you've gotten everything ready. You've packed. You have your arrangements. You've made it to your pre-cruise hotel location. You're getting excited, and one morning you wake up.
It's cruise day.
And it's the day, and it's finally there. You're finally there. It's the day of the cruise, and you're like, oh my God, we made it. We're here. We got to get over to the port.
It's like Christmas.
Yeah, totally. and I'll tell you what. And we've done it as new cruisers, and even now, there's so much buildup. You've waited for this day for months. Some cases over a year, and you finally make it to that day, and you're so excited. And if you're a new cruiser, You wait in line, you finally step foot, you're in awe, it's like shock and awe time, you get on the ship, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And now what do you do?